Hello and welcome to the second video in my class feature list for Fabula Ultima. This is the Chimerist, a guide by Fabula Points. Me! I'm just going to jump straight in as I usually do. So the Chimerist, some will call him a Chimerist. He's your kind of druid kind of character in the sense that he can copy the spells of animals or beast monsters and so on. So this is all we get in the book to kind of support him directly, but later on we'll see some of the spells he can do. So if we just take a look at his skills, so the main one is this spell mimic here. So when you see a creature belonging to the beast monster or plant species cast a spell, you may immediately choose to learn that spell as a chimera spell of your own. If you do, record the species of the creature you learned it from. When you first acquire the skill, choose either Insight and Willpower or Might and Willpower. From now on, your offensive Chimera spells will use the chosen attributes for the magic check, regardless of the attributes used by the creature you learn the spell from. You may have up to skill level plus 2 different Chimera spells, which is awesome. Memorize this way. If you want to memorize a new Chimera spell but already at your limit, you must forget one of your old spells and replace it with a new spell. So one single skill point in this will let you learn 3 different spells, which is great. I'll go over the spells in a minute, but let's just go over everything else here. So in order, the first one is Consume. So after you deal damage to one or more creatures with a spell, if you have an Arcane Dagger or Flail weapon equipped, you recover skill level times 2 mind points, and you can get 5 skill levels in this. Consume is incredible, especially if you're like a spellcaster who has extra levels that they need to put into something. You can choose Chimerist, and then if you get 5 skills into this, then you get 10 mind points back every time you cast a spell that deals damage. And as I'm sure you know, spellcasters quickly run out of mind points, so this is a way to slowly eke them back and be able to get a few extra spells off before needing to rest, which is amazing. Feral speech, you can communicate with creatures of the beast, monster, and plant species. This one will depend on your campaign, but I strongly suggest if one person in your party can get this, then it covers you from like if there's like nice beasts or plants that might like be able to help you out, you can at least communicate with them. Pathogenesis. When you deal damage to one or more creatures with one of your Chimera spells, each of those creatures that share their species with the creature you originally learned the spell from suffers poisoned. So this one isn't actually that great. I'll get into why when I go over the spells, but there aren't that many spells per beast type, especially the ones you get to start with. I'll go back to this. Ritual chimerism. When you may perform rituals whose effects fall within the chimerism discipline. When you acquire a skill, choose Insight plus Willpower or Might plus Willpower, the same as these casting ones. So from now on, when your chimeras and rituals will use the chosen ability for the magic check. So the way I kind of see the chimerist is kind of one of two kind of characters. You can either lean heavily into spell mimic and have like a massive amount of spells that you're able to use, or you can kind of use it where the chimerist will augment your other spell casting, like maxing consume and getting the rituals and you'll have a few spell mimics left because if you don't focus on spell mimic, you'll have 5 in consume, 1 in feral speech. I'd skip pathogenesis, so that's 6, 7 for ritual chimerism, and then you'll be able to get spell mimic 3 times, which will let you have 5 spells. Otherwise, you can go. What I would do, I would go feral speech. I would go ritual chimerism, and then 8 in spell mimic. If you wanted to kind of main the chimerist, to be able to get loads of spells. But let's talk about these spells. So, um, unless your DM is willing to homebrew monsters with spells, or beasts with spells, or plants with spells, etc., they're very limiting on what's in the book, at least, anyway. So let me show you. So if we put this to one side, and we'll get that one. Zoom out slightly. Okay, so for beasts, I've hidden the spell blocks or the stat blocks even, so people can't like see all the details of the beast. Like if you want to be a player and not a DM, there's a few names in here. Like this, it says it's a white howler, but if you're new to the game, you won't know what one is. So if you want to be able to use something like Pathogenesis to deal damage to beasts, there is only one beast that has spells in the core book. It has two spells. It has Iceberg, which deals ice damage and ignores resistances, and Lick Wounds, which lets you heal yourself. So like they're okay spells, but that's the only beast, and he's a level 20 beast, so you're not going to see him for quite a while. And then again for monsters, there's only one. He causes one creature to suffer dazed and weak, which is pretty good. He's a level 10, so you'll find him earlier than this one at least. But again, if you want to be able to use like the pathogenesis, sharing poison to everyone, it's not going to work out if to monsters for a while. Whereas plants, there are four different plants that have spells, and there's one at level 5, 10, 15, and 20. And these also synergize really well together. So if I was only dipping into the Chimera skills, I'd try and get loads of plants so that you could then synergize. So I'll show you Pumpkin Puke. Until the spell ends, the target suffers 5 extra damage from all sources that deal poison damage, which alone isn't great, but if you've got other people in your party that deal poison damage, this will buff them. But also Spore Belch, one creature suffers high roll plus 15 poison damage and suffers dazed. So you can poison them dazed and they take extra poison damage if you set this up first. Moisture Drain, target suffers high roll plus 15 poison damage, then you recover an amount of hit points equal to half the hit point loss suffered by the target, which you gain an extra 5 damage. So that ends up being high roll plus 20 if you get this. So they kind of bounce off of each other really well. And then Numbing Gas, which is from the level 20 plant. Each target loses half of their current mind points, which is incredible, especially if you open like a boss fight or you use it as an opening attack against the boss. And then Predigestion, until the spell ends, suffers 10 extra damage from all sources that deal physical damage. So if you've got a bunch of like um, dual wielding kind of furies or something, like this will be pretty good. So you can, it lasts for a scene, so you can just start stacking damage on them. But if we add up all the different spells we've got, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you wanted to max spell Mimic, you would have 12 spells available and 8 to choose from. So obviously, again, if your DM homebrews that monsters have spells, you'll get more. But if you go in by the book, this isn't enough unless you take a heroic skill. So I'll go over heroic skills after the spells, but Chimeric Mastery lets you pick two creatures among Construct, Demon, Elemental, and Undead. You can use Spell Mimic to learn the spells from those creatures. You can acquire this heroic skill twice, and every time you acquire it, your upper limit for memorize Chimera spells goes up by 2. So if you max Spell Mimic, you'll get 12, and if you get Chimeric Mastery twice, you'll be able to learn 14. And in the book, there's 33 spells total. From enemies at least that you can get these from. So let's go over the Construct, Demon, Elemental, and Undead spells. So Construct, each target suffers shaken, so you can just shake a massive amount of people, which is fine. 20 MPs like a lot, but if there's a massive crowd of people you want to shake at once, then I guess like that's pretty powerful. Stone Barrage, target suffers high roll plus 15 earth damage and suffers dazed, which is pretty cool. But one thing to consider with this, if we go up to this iceberg, iceberg ignores resistances and Stone Barrage does not. So you need to keep an eye on whether your spells ignore resistances or not. So they're two level 10 constructs, and the level 21 Dispel if the target is affected by one or more spells with a duration of scene and they are no longer affected by any of those spells. So this is like a good debuff, especially against like bosses. We do love a good boss fight. Spore Breath, target suffers high roll plus 15 poison damage and suffers weak. So this would synergize well with the plant spells we had earlier if you want to go for like a poison chimerist or something. Vine Burst, you choose any number of creatures you can see and they suffer shaken. So that's exactly the same as Dancing Jester. So if you were to end up with one or the other, pick the one you like the sound of more, don't keep both. you can just forget spells if you run out. Demons. So there's a level 5, 10, 15, and 20 demon. The level 5 one has Enrage. The target suffers Enrage cannot perform the guard or spell actions on their next turn. If you're going up against a spellcasting boss, that's pretty cool. Especially if you've maxed Consume, because then you get 10 magic points back, and you can basically just shut down a caster boss indefinitely. Spells. So each target suffers bolt damage, and the opportunity for that, if you crit, is each target suffers dazed, which is some bolt damage. You've got Ember Breath. It's the same as bolt damage, but fire damage and suffers weak. Howl's a Tragedy. Target suffers shaken. And then level 21, Brain Melt. Each target loses high roll plus 10 mind points. So if you're up against a group of casters, that's pretty cool. Elementals. So once again, there's one level 5, 10, 15, and 20. Entangle, the target suffers slow. Heal, each target recovers 40 mind points, and then scaling up if you're higher level. So that's pretty cool. This is only the second healing one we've come across so far, and the first was a self-heal. So you can use this to heal your allies. Static Wave, target suffers bolt damage and slow, which the bolt damage up here was... why can't I remember? Bolt damage and dazed. So you got bolt damage and dazed, bolt damage and slow. So you can like cause different effects as you kind of need to. So that's the level 10. The level 15, Frost Breath, suffers ice damage and weak. So there's a lot of like different elemental damage in different conditions, which like situationally would be amazing. And the level 20 Rock Barrage, the target suffers high roll plus 20 earth damage and suffers dazed or terror. So up to 3 creatures suffer high roll plus 20 earth damage. The spell cannot target creatures who are flying or in midair. Any opportunity, each target performs one fewer action on their next turn to a minimum of 0 actions, which is a pretty good shutdown if you manage to get it across. And then the last ones are Undead. So there's a level 10, 15, and 20 Undead. Umbra, each target suffers high roll dark damage, high roll plus 15 dark damage, and the opportunity is they suffer shaken. Rot Breath, target suffers high roll 15 dark damage and suffers weak. Ghastly Wail, high roll plus 20 ice damage and suffers shaken. So that's a lot of spells. Like I mentioned before, there's 33 spells in total if you take Chimeric Mastery. So if you take Chimeric Mastery and Master Skill Mimic, you can get half of the spells um, on you at once. But some of them are actually identical apart from the name, and a lot of them do very similar things, so you wouldn't want that. Yeah, so that's the spells. Obviously, feel free to pause and read them like fully, because I kind of skimmed through them. Next up, I want to talk about the heroic skills. So, Chimeric Mastery, as we've mentioned, is on page 234 of the core book. I won't go through that again. Powerful spell. This one, you can be either a Chimerist, Elementalist, Entropist, or Spiritist. So, were you to main one of the others and dip into Chimerist, you could use your Chimeric heroic skill to grab this. When you cast a spell that deals damage to one or more creatures, that spell deals 5 extra damage to each creature. Amount of damage increases to 10 if you're level 40 or higher, so a little bit of extra damage can't hurt. And in the Atlas book, if you have it or have access to it, fast rituals. When you initiate a ritual during a conflict scene, the ritual clock is created with 2 fewer sections than normal to a minimum of 4 sections. So if you're the kind of person that likes to ritual cast in combat, you can grab this and it makes it a bit quicker. So yeah, that, ladies and gentlemen, is the Chimerist. So I kind of mentioned before that I feel there's 2 different ways to play the Chimerist. One where you're trying to get the maximum amount of spells that you can, and definitely want Feral Speech so that you're able to be able to cast as much as possible and have like lots of options to be able to do whatever you need. Or you, as a supporting class, where you max out Consume so that you can cast more spells all the time, and you pick up only the spells that will complement your spell list already. Cool, but yeah, that's it. I never know how to end these videos, so I'm just going to leave it there. Thank you very much for watching, and goodbye.